Or I'll consume what time I'm at of our remaining time. I hope to not use it all. But I come to the floor to talk about an issue that should be very important to every American. In less than 20 months, the Social Security disability system will be bankrupt, out of money. And that may sound like just a scare tactic, but that's what the trust fund trustees say. And we've known this for some time. And my colleague and myself, Carl Levin, he is chairman of the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, and myself as ranking, spent a great deal of time oversighting Social Security disability. And we issued a report that had some pretty remarkable findings in it. And I thought I'd go through some of those findings today because I have two major concerns. One is that those people with true disabilities are going to see in 18 months a 20% cut in what they get paid each month, and they're barely surviving on the disability payments we give them today. The second thing is the failure of the Justice Department when handed an absolutely, totally perfect case of not prosecuting criminals that are taking advantage not only of people with disability, but of people of this country. Social Security disability insurance is an important safety net for a large number of people, about 11 million in this country. In the past 5 years, we've gone from 11 million to 14.1 million applications for disability, some of that associated with our recession, but some with true injury. But one of the things we did, we started out very meticulous as we looked at this, and I want to applaud some of the employees of the Social Security Administration because they were the ones that highlighted this to me, people who worked in the Oklahoma City Social Security office, about the lousy quality of what was happening as these were being processed. And so what we did is we went to the Social Security Administration, we asked them to randomly select 300 case files, 100 each from 3 different geographical locations throughout the country. And that included Oklahoma County, in my home state. And what we looked at was a large random number of cases, most of them drawn from decisions made by the judges, the Social Security Administration's 1,500 administrative law judges. And what we found using Social Security's own criteria was that 25% of the cases were decided absolutely erroneously, according to their own rules and their own guidelines. But that didn't surprise the Social Security Administration because they'd been looking at it all along, and they knew that, according to their records, 23 to 24% of all the cases had been being decided erroneously. So our second step was to look where we saw this abuse the highest, and that was in the Huntington, West Virginia Social Security Disability Hearing Office. So Senator Levin and I set our investigators about doing a total and comprehensive investigation of that office. The problems we found there were similar to the problems we found in our prior investigation in these 3 other offices, except much worse. The Huntington office got our attention in part because it processed more disability cases than almost every other Social Security office in the nation. Much of that to just one attorney by the name of Eric Christopher Kahn. Despite practicing in a town of only 500 people, Mr. Kahn had become the 3rd highest paid disability attorney in the entire United States. He helped thousands of people get onto the disability programs, And in 2010, he received $4 million in payments from the Social Security Disability Program. The only other attorneys receiving more from SSA were Charles Binder of Binder & Binder, who I noticed filed bankruptcy this week, and that was $22 million, and Thomas Nash of Chicago, who received $6.3 million. When we looked more closely at Mr. Kahn's operations, what we found were reasons for serious concern. While some of what Mr. Kahn did involved outright fraud, which we have documented and proven, at times he was simply able to exploit loopholes in Social Security's systems. Both of those things should be a concern to Congress. To ensure the cases were approved and his attorney fees kept flowing, Mr. Kahn colluded with an ALJ in the Huntington office by the name of David B. Doherty. The two men worked together to award hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in fraudulent disability claims. This is an administrative law judge. Their plan involved several calculated steps. First, Judge Doherty needed to ensure that Mr. Kahn's cases were assigned to him. Normally, agency rules require cases be assigned to the ALJs on a rotational basis, with the oldest case being assigned to a hearing date first. This way, no one administrative law judge receives too many of one attorney's cases. Judge Doherty, however, would at times intercept Mr. Kahn's cases and assign them to himself. If cases would slip past him and get assigned to another attorney, another judge, Judge Doherty would inappropriately go into the computer system and move the case to his jurisdiction. The next step in the plan involved Judge Doherty calling Mr. Kahn's office every month to let them know what kind of additional evidence he needed for each client to be able to award a disability. Judge Doherty started the monthly call by relaying the name and Social Security number of each person he was ready to approve. He would then say whether he needed the new piece of evidence should relate to a mental or a physical medical impairment. The list of claimants would then be typed up in Mr. Kahn's law firm. Mr. Kahn's staff referred these monthly lists as the DB list, the David B. Doherty lists. We reviewed these DB lists, every one of them, from June 6 through July 2010. Each contained as many as 52 names each month. In total, the DB list from that time period contained the names of 1,823 claimants who were approved, all approved for disability benefits. After Judge Doherty told Mr. Kahn the kind of medical evidence he needed, the next step shifted to Mr. Kahn to ensure a doctor provided that evidence. Fortunately for Mr. Kahn, he had a crew of doctors in his pocket, ready to provide what he needed. To find doctors willing to go along with him, Mr. Kahn searched the internet for ones with checkered past. Doctors Mr. Kahn used often had histories of malpractice. Some had had multiple license revocations in multiple states. In fact, Mr. Kahn's go-to doctor was the subject of numerous malpractice lawsuits and even had had his medical license revoked and suspended in several states. Mr. Kahn scheduled the DB list claimants to be seen by his doctors. The doctors spent as little as 15 minutes evaluating, quote, each claimant, and sometimes saw 35 to 40 claimants a day. Mr. Kahn paid the doctors that he used $500 for each patient they saw. The doctors would complete a form used by the agency to determine a claimant's residual functional capacity to work in any job available in the national economy. While the evidentiary forms provided by the doctors were supposed to be specifically tailored to the physical or mental impairments of each client, all of Mr. Kahn's forms were the same. They were pre-filled out. He had 15 versions of the physical form and 5 versions of the mental form that were just rotated among the clients. Matter of fact, the committee determined that 97 of Mr. Kahn's claimants approved by Judge Doherty had exactly the same residual functional capacity, a statistical impossibility. Could not happen. Mr. Kahn would then submit the RFCs, the residual functional capacity forms, and a brief description of the claimant to Judge Doherty. Judge Doherty would then approve the claim for benefits in an abbreviated decision determining the evidence provided by Mr. Kahn outweighed all the other evidence provided by Mr. Kahn. It outweighed all the other evidence in the claimant's file. At times, the medical evidence Judge Doherty ignored could be thousands of pages long. The plan made Mr. Kahn millions. In 2010, SSA paid Mr. Kahn $4 million in attorney fees, as I stated earlier, making him the third highest paid attorney in the country. He paid out almost $2 million to the doctors that were given unscrupulous and ill-advised and absolutely erroneous pre-managed outcomes. And Judge Doherty, mysteriously, under our subpoenas, had received some $100,000 into his bank accounts from cash deposits during this time. But Judge Doherty wasn't just approving Mr. Kahn's cases. In the last 5 years of working for the agency, Judge Doherty awarded more than $2.5 billion in disability benefits. He approved more cases than any other ALJ in the entire United States. There was another judge, Judge Charlie Andrus, who played a major role in approving the fraudulent claims. He allowed Judge Doherty to decide to approve a high number of claims. He and Judge Andrus enjoyed accolades and national recognition from this. The Huntington office rose to have the second fastest processing time in the entire country. No wonder. They didn't actually process. It was a slam dunk. You get under Judge Andrus, you get under Judge Doherty, and you got Eric Kahn, you get approved, no matter whether it's true or not. Mr. Andrus, as the acting superior judge, did nothing to stop Mr. Kahn and Judge Doherty. He actually colluded with Mr. Kahn to target a whistleblower from his own office. And I won't go into the details, but I will submit it for the record. The second thing that I would note about Judge Andrus is he was not truthful in his testimony before the committee, under oath, and that we have evidence of his lying to the committee under oath. When all of this was exposed, the agency put Judge Andrus on paid administrative leave and filed a claim with the Merit System Protection Board. That was in January of 2013. In 2014, Mr. Andrus voluntarily retired according to a decision from the Merit Systems Protection Board. The complaint the agency filed against Mr. Andrus charged him with conduct unbecoming an ALJ, engaging in an apparent conflict of interest, lack of candor, and unauthorized disclosures. Despite these charges, as part of a settlement agreement, the agency agreed to refrain from pursuing any disciplinary action against Andrus and to provide a neutral reference to prospective employers. And he retired with his pension. So a crook retires with their pension. So no disciplinary action is taken against Charlie Andrus, even after he turned a blind eye for years, admitting to conspiring to retaliate against an employee, was untruthful and lied to a committee of Congress under oath. Nor has the Department of Justice, Attorney General, nor has the Department of Justice taken any action against Mr. Kahn or Judge Doherty. In fact, Mr. Kahn continues to represent disability claimants before the Social Security Administration. These two men who actively committed fraud on one of the most important safety net programs our government runs. We should not let the actions of these individuals go unpunished. But that's what's happening. I recently had a visit with the IG from Social Security Administration, Mr. O'Carroll. At this point, the United States attorneys in West Virginia and Kentucky have both recused themselves and declined to prosecute Mr. Kahn. Now, I wonder what he has over them. I wonder what it is when you have a closed case, prosecutorial case that you have to do no work on, and the U.S. attorneys will not prosecute a thief of the highest order. Since both U.S. attorneys recused themselves, Mr. O'Carroll is now trying to convince the Criminal Division of the Department of Justice here in Washington, D.C. to take action. But to date, no charges have been filed against Mr. Kahn, Judge Doherty, or Judge Andrus. If they do not take action against Mr. Kahn, the Justice Department is sending the message that disability fraud will go unpunished. We need to be sending the opposite message, that these types of fraudulent practices by attorneys like Eric Kahn must be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Otherwise, the disability program, no matter how much oversight we do on it, will continue to be abused, leaving those Americans that have no choice but to rely on it with less than what they expected. I would add one final statement. In working with a lot of the disability community, we have introduced this week what we hope the Congress will take up in future years is a reform to the disability program that takes the fraud out of it, the opportunity for fraud, that takes the ability to actually hold people accountable, and also gives back the dignity of those that can get back to work and uses that to help them accomplish that very goal. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.